It was just another Friday night in Los Angeles, the kind where restaurants hum with the soft clinking of glasses and the low murmur of conversation. But that night, something different was about to unfold at a place called Talks. Not on the surface. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. The lighting was warm and golden, the ribeye sizzled, the cocktails sparkled, and couples leaned in close across candlelit tables. But beneath the surface, something was off, and Dwayne Johnson felt it the moment he stepped inside. No fanfare, no entourage, just a tall, broad-shouldered man in a hoodie and jeans walking quietly into the restaurant he owned. Most people didn't even notice him, and that was the point. Every few months Dwayne did this, showed up unannounced to see the truth of his business, not the glossy reports, not the curated emails. The truth. Because, as he liked to say, you don't find the soul of a restaurant on spreadsheets. You find it in the silence between shifts, in the stories no one dares to share. And that night he was right. He walked past the front bar, nodding politely to the bartender, eyes scanning the room. To any outsider, Talks was thriving. But Dwayne had worked his way up in the world. He knew how to spot tension, real tension. His gaze landed on the manager, a man in a navy blue dress shirt, standing stiff at the edge of the dining room like a general surveying his troops. Something about the way he stood, arms crossed, eyes hard, it didn't sit right. Then Dwayne heard it, a sound so soft, so buried under the laughter and clatter, it was almost nothing. Almost, but Dwayne caught it. A stifled cry, muffled, restrained. The kind of cry you let out only when you've been holding it in too long. It came from the side hallway, near the kitchen. He slowed his pace. The door to the break room was slightly ajar. Through the gap, he glimpsed a young woman, her head bowed, hands clenching the edge of a cold metal counter like it was the only thing holding her up. A fellow employee stood beside her, whispering urgently, voice low and tense. Dwayne didn't know who she was, but he knew that look, that kind of sorrow. That wasn't just exhaustion. That was fear. He felt it in his gut. He turned away slowly, forcing himself to sit down at the bar, masking his concern behind a calm expression. But his mind was racing. He'd seen hard nights before, long shifts, rude customers. But this was something else, something deeper, something darker, and that was when he made a choice. He wouldn't reveal who he was, not yet, because the moment you announce your name, people shift, they hide, they perform. And what Dwayne needed tonight was the truth, unfiltered, unspoken, raw. So he waited, and he listened, because sometimes the most important stories are whispered when no one thinks you're listening. Dwayne sat still at the bar, nursing a glass of water he barely touched. His eyes drifted across the restaurant, but his focus was elsewhere. Back to that break room, to the young woman's clenched hands and the broken sobs she tried so hard to suppress. There was something buried in that moment that wouldn't leave him alone. It wasn't just stress, it was fear, heavy, suffocating fear. And Dwayne had seen enough of the world to know what that kind of fear looked like. He considered getting up and walking over. Just ask her outright, "Are you okay?" But he didn't. Not yet. Because at that moment, he wasn't Dwayne Johnson, the famous actor, the owner of Talks. He was just another guy at the bar, just a customer, and if he wanted the truth, he needed to keep it that way. He leaned slightly, listening, hoping to catch a sliver of the hushed conversation continuing behind that break room door. What he heard next made his blood go cold. "You can't let him. He doesn't own you." That voice belonged to the young man beside her, probably another server. There was desperation in his tone, like someone trying to save a friend from going under. Then came her reply, barely a whisper. "What choice do I have? He made it clear. If I don't do what he says, I'm gone. Gone." The word echoed in Dwayne's head. That didn't sound like a complaint about a rude customer. That didn't sound like someone overwhelmed from a double shift. That sounded like blackmail, like control, like someone was using their position to trap her in a corner she couldn't escape from. His grip tightened around the glass. From across the room, he noticed the same man from earlier, the one in the navy blue dress shirt, still standing stiffly near the front, arms crossed, eyes constantly scanning, watching, not observing like a good manager. No, it was predatory, territorial. Dwayne's instincts were now on high alert. A few minutes later, the young male employee from the break room emerged, his jaw tight, his hands fiddling with the notepad tucked in his apron. He looked rattled. Dwayne saw the window of opportunity open. He stood up casually, walking toward the service station at the back, where the young man was reorganizing plates. "Hey, man," Dwayne said, keeping his tone friendly and relaxed. "Got a pen?" The server looked up, startled. "Oh, yeah. Sure." He grabbed one quickly and handed it over. Dwayne took it but didn't walk away. Instead, he glanced at the kid's name tag, Tyler. "Hey, Tyler," he said calmly. "I couldn't help but notice. Your friend seems pretty upset." Tyler froze for half a second. His grip tightened on the stack of plates. "She's fine," he said too quickly. "She doesn't look fine." Tyler's eyes flicked briefly toward the front of the restaurant, toward the man in the navy shirt, then dropped back down. It was subtle, but to Dwayne it was loud and clear. Fear. After a long pause, Tyler finally exhaled. "She's not fine," he said, barely above a whisper. Dwayne nodded slightly, letting the kid know he wasn't pushing, just listening. His voice dropped lower. "Is it a customer issue?" Tyler hesitated. That pause, that tiny pause, said everything. "No," he finally muttered. "It's not." His eyes shifted again toward the front, toward the manager. Dwayne didn't need to ask any more. He knew. He'd seen this before, in showbiz, in restaurants, in every industry where power could be abused behind closed doors. Someone wasn't just creating a toxic work environment. They were creating fear, dependency, silence. He leaned in slightly. "How long has she been working here?" Tyler responded on instinct. "A little over a year." Then he tensed. "Why?" Dwayne shrugged, keeping the mood light. "Just wondering if she likes it here." Tyler gave a short, bitter laugh. "She doesn't, but she can't afford to leave." And there it was. The truth no one says out loud. She wasn't just stressed. She was trapped. And Dwayne, he wasn't. About to let that go. Before Dwayne could ask anything else, something shifted. Tyler went stiff, his back straightening, hands suddenly too busy with the plates in front of him. Dwayne didn't need to turn around to know why. He could feel it, like a chill sweeping through the air. The presence behind them was sharp, heavy, expectant. The manager. A voice followed a second later, smooth but lined with subtle threat. "Everything okay over here?" Dwayne turned slowly, keeping his face neutral. The man standing there was in his mid-40s, crisp navy shirt pressed to perfection, hair neatly combed, expression unreadable. But his eyes? Cold, calculating. The kind of look that didn't miss a thing. The name tag on his chest read, Rick Calloway. Tyler dropped his gaze instantly, eyes fixed on the stack of plates like they held all the secrets of the universe. "Yes, sir. Just helping a customer." Calloway's eyes didn't leave Dwayne. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, the tone polite but the undercurrent unmistakable. "Back off." Dwayne offered a casual smile. "Just getting a pen." "Tyler here was kind enough to help me out." Calloway held that stare for a beat too long. Then, with a practiced grin, he clapped Tyler on the shoulder. Just a little too hard. "Let's stay focused on work," he said. Tyler nodded quickly, still not looking up. "Yes, sir." Dwayne's jaw tightened, but he didn't show it. Not yet. He thanked Tyler and walked away, feeling Calloway's eyes trailing him like a hunter marking a target. The moment he stepped away from the station, his mind was already racing. Whatever was going on with Emily wasn't speculation anymore. It was real, and Calloway was at the center of it. Outside, the night air hit Dwayne's face like a splash of ice water. He stepped just far enough from the building to look like he was checking his phone, but in reality, he was thinking hard. Everything he'd just witnessed, the nervous glances, the forced smiles, the dread. Emily was terrified, Tyler was scared, and Calloway. That man had the calm confidence of someone who knew he held the power and used it. If Dwayne wanted real answers, he needed someone who wasn't afraid, someone who'd talk. As if fate was listening, the bartender from earlier, Nate, stepped outside, young, tired-looking, scrolling through his phone with the kind of zoned-out expression only restaurant workers perfect after a long Friday night shift. This was it, a window, a chance. Dwayne walked over slowly, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. Long night? Nate looked up, startled for a second, then recognized him. Yeah, Fridays are always rough. Dwayne nodded. Mind if I ask you something? Nate hesitated, then shrugged. Sure. Dwayne kept his tone easy. Your manager, Rick Calloway. What's he like? There was a flicker, barely there, but Dwayne caught it. A darkening behind Nate's eyes. A flash of discomfort. He's, strict, Nate said carefully. Likes things done a certain way. Dwayne tilted his head, voice still calm. Is that normal for managers? Nate looked around instinctively, as if checking for hidden ears. Then his voice dropped, barely audible. He's not just strict. He makes Emily stay late, alone. The words hit like a slap. She's the only one, Nate added, and the way he talks to her, like she owes him something. I've seen it, the way she tenses up when he calls her into his office. It's not normal. Dwayne's hands clenched. In his jacket pockets, he'd seen this before. The abuse of authority, the manipulation, the subtle power plays no one dares to call out. He took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. She ever say anything? He asked quietly. Nate shook his head. No, but she doesn't have to. We all see it. Dwayne nodded slowly, a dark certainty settling in. This wasn't just about poor management. It was predation, and that changed everything. Thanks, Nate, he said, clapping the bartender gently on the shoulder. You did the right thing. Nate gave a hesitant smile, but the worry in his eyes lingered. Dwayne turned back toward the restaurant, his heart heavy, his mission clear. Emily was still inside, still under Calloway's control, but not for long. Dwayne stepped back through the glass doors, his face calm, but his mind burning with everything he'd just learned. The atmosphere inside the restaurant had shifted. The chaos of the dinner rush had eased. Conversations were quieter now, the clinking of silverware more sporadic. But the air was still thick, charged with something heavier. Calloway remained, near the server stations, his eyes still doing that thing, scanning, measuring, controlling. He hadn't left his post. And that told Dwayne one thing. The man didn't trust anyone. He didn't have to. Dwayne didn't head to the bar this time. He didn't linger. He crossed the dining room with purpose, not causing a scene, but not exactly hiding either. He locked eyes on Emily, who was helping a customer at the far end of the room. Her voice was polite, her hands efficient, but her eyes told the truth. They were hollow, flat, like a light had been dimmed inside her a long time ago. She saw Dwayne approaching, and for a split second she flinched, just slightly, like she thought trouble was coming. Excuse me, Dwayne said gently, his voice low but deliberate. I need to speak with you for a moment. Emily blinked, clearly confused. I'm with a customer, sir. The woman she was serving gave a sharp look. She's helping me right now. You'll need to wait. But Dwayne didn't break eye contact with Emily. It's important. And Emily, she felt it. She sensed something in his tone that didn't match the surface. After a beat, she apologized softly to the guest and stepped away. They walked only a few feet, just enough for a whisper. Emily fiddled nervously with the edge of her apron, eyes darting. "What can I help you with, sir?" she asked, trying to keep her tone professional. Dwayne took a steady breath. "I know what's going on," he said quietly. "You don't have to say anything right now. I just want you to know you're not alone." That cracked something. For a fraction of a second, her eyes flickered with raw panic, and she looked like she might crumble. But then, just as fast, she shook her head and forced a small, tight smile. I don't know what you mean." But Dwayne didn't let the moment slide. His voice softened, but his words were steady. "Calloway, the late shifts, the way he talks to you, I know, and it's not okay." Her hands clenched, her breath caught. Fear, yes, but also disbelief, as if part of her had convinced herself. No one would ever see it, let alone say it out loud. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't do anything." "Yes, you can," Dwayne said firmly. "And you will, because I promise you he's not untouchable." Just then, a shadow fell over them. Rick Calloway had arrived. His voice was cool, casual. "Is there a problem here?" Dwayne didn't look at him at first. He kept his focus on Emily, whose shoulders visibly shrank at the sound of her manager's voice. Her fingers curled tighter around her apron, and that, more than anything, told Dwayne everything he needed to know. He turned slowly, his expression calm but unreadable. "Just having a conversation," he said. Calloway smiled, the kind that didn't reach the eyes. "Well, Emily has a job to do. She doesn't have time for private discussions." And that word, private, the way he said it, the way Emily flinched. Dwayne's chest burned. Enough was enough. He squared up just a little. His stance grew taller, firmer. His presence shifted from invisible customer to something unmistakable. "Actually," Dwayne said, his voice clear and steady, "I think we should have a conversation right now." Calloway's smile flickered. "Excuse me?" Dwayne reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. In one smooth motion, he opened it and revealed his executive ownership credentials for Talk's restaurant group. For a beat, the world stopped. Emily gasped. Servers nearby froze mid-motion. Even Calloway's smugness evaporated as his face drained of color. "My name is Dwayne Johnson," he said quietly but firmly, "and you and I need to talk." The entire restaurant seemed to freeze. Plates paused mid-air. Conversations stumbled into silence. For a long, tense moment, all eyes were on Dwayne Johnson, no longer just a quiet man in a hoodie, but the owner, the one with the real authority. And Rick Calloway, the manager who had ruled this floor like a dictator, his face turned pale. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. He looked like he'd just been caught walking into a trap he never even saw being set. "Sir, I didn't realize," Calloway stammered, but Dwayne cut him off with a quiet firmness that stopped the man cold. "No, you didn't," Dwayne said, "and that's the problem, isn't it?" Then his tone softened as he turned back to Emily, who was still frozen, eyes wide, like her brain couldn't quite process what had just happened. "You're safe now," Dwayne told her gently. Her lips parted. A shaky breath escaped her chest. And for the first time that night, her posture changed. Slightly, not all at once, but enough to know something was shifting inside her. Calloway, scrambling to recover, tried again. "Sir, I assure you, there's been a misunderstanding. If you'd just give me a moment—" "Your office. Now." Dwayne's voice cut like steel, low and unwavering. Calloway swallowed hard. His authority evaporated in an instant. He turned stiffly and walked toward the back, and Dwayne followed, but not before casting one last look at Emily. "Stay here," he told her, voice calm, but protective. "This won't take long." The door closed behind them. Inside the manager's office, the air was tight, the energy tense. Calloway turned and let out a forced chuckle. He tried to regain control with casual charm, but his voice cracked with nerves. "I have to say, sir, I didn't expect to see you here tonight. Bit unusual for the owner to drop by unannounced, isn't it?" Dwayne didn't flinch. He stepped forward, placed both hands on the desk, and locked eyes with him. "You know, what else is unusual?" Dwayne said, voice cold now. "A restaurant manager abusing his power to intimidate his staff." Calloway flinched. "I don't know what you mean," he lied, eyes darting. Dwayne didn't blink. "I know exactly what you've been doing. I know about the late-night shifts. I know the way you isolate Emily. I know the tone you use, the pressure you put on her. Sir, Dwayne didn't let him finish. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and with a quick tap, played back something that froze Calloway in place. Emily's voice, quiet, broken, came through the speaker. "If I don't do what he says, I'm gone." Then Tyler's voice, equally low, desperate. "You can't let him. He doesn't own you." Calloway's face drained of all color. "You should have known better," Dwayne said. His voice wasn't raised. He didn't have to shout. Every word hit like a hammer. "You've been playing this game too long, preying on people who needed their jobs so badly they couldn't afford to speak up, making them believe they didn't have a choice." Calloway's hands were trembling now. "Please, I can explain." "No," Dwayne snapped. "You can't, and you won't." He picked up the phone again. This time he dialed a number. The line rang once, then connected. "Hi, this is Dwayne Johnson. I need corporate HR on the line immediately. We're terminating a manager tonight, effective immediately." Calloway sat there completely still. The predator was now powerless, and the silence in the room felt like justice finally cracking through the walls. Dwayne didn't stay to watch him unravel. He turned, opened the office door, and stepped back into the restaurant. This wasn't over, not yet. But the most dangerous man in the building was now exactly where he belonged, exposed, powerless, and done. When Dwayne stepped back into the restaurant, the shift in the room was unmistakable. The music still played softly overhead. The lights still glowed their gentle amber hue, but the energy had changed. The tension that had hung heavy in the air for weeks, maybe months, was now unraveling thread by thread. All eyes turned toward him, but not in fear, in hope. The staff had seen what happened. They didn't hear every word behind that office door, but they saw enough. They saw Calloway walk in confident, and they saw him not return. Dwayne moved with quiet purpose back to the heart of the floor. Emily, Tyler, Nate, they were all there, standing near the server station. Emily's hands were still trembling, but she stood straighter now, her shoulders no longer hunched in defeat. Dwayne stopped a few feet from her, looked her in the eyes, and said 4 words that carried more weight than anything else that night. "He's gone. You're safe." Emily blinked. The words took a moment to land. She opened her mouth as if to respond, but no sound came. Instead, she let out a breath, a long, shaky exhale, like her lungs were finally remembering how to work. Nate looked stunned. Tyler's mouth fell open slightly. Around them, other employees started to gather, wordlessly forming a loose circle. It was like they didn't believe it. Not yet. Like someone might snap their fingers and reset the nightmare. But Dwayne wasn't done. He turned toward the group, his voice clear but gentle. "You've all been working under someone who never should have had that kind of power. That ends tonight." Emily wiped her eyes, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't look afraid. She looked curious, tentative, like she wasn't sure what came next, but for once she had a say in it. "What happens now?" she asked. Dwayne gave a small nod. "You tell me." It was a simple phrase, but in that moment it meant everything. It meant choice. It meant control. It meant they weren't just cogs in someone else's machine. They had a voice. Emily looked around at her co-workers. Tyler, who had spoken up even when it was risky. Nate, who had told the truth when it counted. She looked back at Dwayne and said, I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. Not here, not anywhere." Dwayne's expression softened. "And they won't," he replied. "Because starting now, this restaurant is under full review. We're not just replacing Calloway, we're rebuilding the culture from the ground up. every shift, every policy, every manager accountable. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was reverent. The kind of silence that fills a room when something sacred has just been spoken. Then Tyler stepped forward. His voice was stronger now. "Sir, I don't mean to overstep, but it's not just Callaway. The pressure, the way we're treated, the fear of speaking up, it's all part of it. It's bigger than just one guy." Dwayne nodded slowly. "Go on." Tyler hesitated, then continued. "Most of us feel like we can't complain. Like the second we speak up, we're replaceable," Nate chimed in, quieter. "I've seen people get pushed out just for asking for a break." Emily looked down, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "I wanted to leave so many times," she admitted, "but I couldn't afford to, and a part of me thought, maybe this was normal." Dwayne's jaw clenched. This was why he came here in secret, not for profits, not for publicity, but because the truth of a business isn't written in emails or reports. It's found in whispers, in people too scared to speak. He took a deep breath, then looked them all in the eye. That stops today. Dwayne stood in the center of his own restaurant, surrounded by people who, for far too long, had learned to keep their heads down. Their faces showed a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope, like survivors of a storm who just realized the thunder had stopped. He saw their uncertainty, wondering if this moment was real or just temporary. But Dwayne wasn't here to make promises he couldn't keep. He was here to tell the truth. "I don't just want to fix this restaurant," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but every syllable landed with weight. "I want to fix the system that allowed this to happen in the first place. And I can't do that without you." There was silence, not out of fear anymore, but attention. These were people who had been conditioned to believe their voices didn't matter. And now someone was not only listening, he was asking them to speak. Dwayne took a slow breath. "This means transparency. It means trust. If something's wrong, if someone is being mistreated, I want to know. No more secrets, no more suffering in silence." Emily looked up at him, still unsure. "And if we do speak up, will someone actually listen?" Dwayne's eyes didn't waver. "I will." There was no theatrics, no corporate jargon, just the promise of someone who meant it, someone who had walked the walk. Emily stared at him for a long moment, as if testing the weight of his words, and finally she nodded. It was small, but it was the beginning of something big. An hour later, most of the guests had left, and the staff was quietly cleaning up the last remnants of the night. Dwayne didn't leave. He stayed, sat at the corner of the restaurant, just watching, reflecting. From his car earlier, he might have looked like a man checking his phone, but now, sitting inside, he was watching something much more meaningful, people rediscovering what it felt like to breathe. Emily walked out with Tyler and Nate, the three of them talking quietly, their shoulders lighter. Not everything was healed, not yet. But for the first time in over a year, there was no Callaway lurking behind the counter, no fear of being called into the office. Just three people walking out of work, not as victims, but as survivors. Dwayne ran a hand across his face. This had been one location, one restaurant, one toxic manager, but how many more were out there? How many employees like Emily had learned to stay quiet because silence felt safer than truth? He had built Talks to be more than a place for food. It was supposed to be a place of pride, of respect, of dignity, somewhere that dishwashers, hosts, bartenders and servers all felt seen, valued. But even the best intentions couldn't stop bad people from slipping through the cracks. And that's what this night reminded him. Leadership isn't about profit, margins. It isn't about sleek branding or social media praise. It's about people, and people, real people, need to be protected, not just paid. They need to be heard. Too often, those in power look the other way. They see workers as positions on a schedule, not as human beings with fears, dreams, and lives beyond the shift. But not tonight. Not anymore. Dwayne leaned back in the chair, eyes still on the front doors. He wasn't proud of what had happened under his nose, but he was damn sure proud of how it ended. Because change doesn't start with a speech. It starts with one person saying, "Enough," and tonight, he was that person. Dwayne sat alone now, the din of the restaurant long faded into quiet. Through the front windows, he watched as the last of the staff filed out. Emily walked with Tyler and Nate, their pace relaxed, their expressions softer. For the first time in a long time, there was no dread lingering behind their eyes. They didn't look over their shoulders. They didn't walk with their heads down. They talked, really talked, as they walked into the night. And Dwayne, he just sat there watching something beautiful unfold. That was what this had always been about. Not the food, not the fame, but people. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, letting his thoughts settle. One manager, one location, one problem uncovered, but how many others hadn't been seen? How many Emilys were still out there, trapped under the weight of silence, telling themselves they had no choice? Dwayne had spent decades climbing his way through the Hollywood machine. He'd met good people, and dangerous ones. He knew how easily power could twist, distort, and prey on the vulnerable. And tonight reminded him that those same power games didn't stop in casting rooms or boardrooms. They existed in kitchens, in service stations, in break rooms that reeked of exhaustion and fear. This wasn't a win. It was a warning. Too many places still operated like this. Too many employees were still made to feel disposable, and far too often, people in charge looked the other way because they didn't want to rock the boat. But what Dwayne saw tonight made one thing clear. The boat was already sinking, all because no one had spoken up, or worse, they had, and no one had listened. He stood slowly, walking through the quiet restaurant, letting the night sink in. His hand grazed the top of a bar stool. He paused at the break room door, the same one he'd passed earlier when he first heard Emily's quiet sobs, and he stared at it for a long time. That door had once held a girl hostage in her silence, but now it was just a door. The fear had been broken. Then he turned back toward the front. Leadership wasn't about authority, it was about responsibility. And part of that responsibility was showing up when it mattered most, when no one expected you to, when it would have been easier to stay home, let someone else handle it, and look the other way. But Dwayne knew better. You don't fix problems by ignoring them. You fix them by facing them, head on, even when it's uncomfortable. So tonight, he made a choice, not just to fire one toxic manager, but to challenge the entire system that allowed him to thrive. He wasn't just rebuilding a restaurant. He was rebuilding trust, a culture, a belief that when something is wrong, someone will listen. And as he stepped outside, the cool air wrapped around him like closure. He glanced once more at the sidewalk, where Emily and the others had disappeared moments before. Maybe they were just going home. Maybe they were just grabbing late-night tacos down the block. But whatever came next, they were doing it without fear. That was enough. He turned toward the camera, the viewer, and if you've made it this far, he wants you to remember one thing. If you ever find yourself trapped, if someone in power is using that power to control you, silence you, or scare you, you are not alone. Speak up, say something. Find someone who will fight beside you. And if you see someone else in that situation, don't turn away. Because sometimes all it takes is one person to break the cycle. Tonight, that person was him. Tomorrow, it could be you. Tonight, that voice belonged to Dwayne Johnson. But tomorrow, it could be yours. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you hopeful, if it reminded you of someone you know, don't let it end here. Share this video, leave a comment below, tell us what you would have done. And if you've ever been Emily, or if you've ever been the one who listened like Tyler or Nate, your voice matters more than you know. Because stories like this, they deserve to be heard. Hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful true stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what matters most. And remember, courage is contagious. Pass it on.